We've all tackled framing two-dimensional objects like, I don't know, here's a picture I've just got from a magazine. You take everything out, you take the plastic covering, I've already done this, you take the plastic covering off your bit of glass or perspex, whatever you've got, you put your mount in, you put your photograph in, and then you put your backboard in and put these little things here, bend them down to hold it in place, and there you go, it's done. But what if you want to frame something like this, which is three-dimensional, or something like this? It's a bit more of a challenge. This is how you do it. Hello and welcome to Handmade Originals, the YouTube channel where I tackle a huge variety of creative projects in the hope of giving you some confidence and maybe even inspiring you to have a go yourself, to get in touch with your inner creative, if you like, and to explore whatever field interests you with a more creative outlook. Now, today's video is going to be something very simple, but it's a little more, not complicated exactly, but requires a little bit more thought than you might expect. So first of all, you need these thick frames like this. First two stages are the same. You put your perspex in, you put your mount in, and then you bend these horrible little wires. It's always hurt my fingers. You bend them down to hold that in place. And then you have the depth of the frame to put your three-dimensional object in. This is the, I guess it's called the back plate or something, and normally that would go there. I want it to finish here, but obviously it's too small to sit on top of the outside of the frame. It'll just go in it. So what I've done, I've cut myself a bit of board, not brilliantly cut, which is about 1 millimetre inside the exterior of the frame. I'm going to glue that on there, and then that will be deep enough to hold whatever objects, as long as they're not huge, whatever objects I want to put in there. I'm going to put all that together and then I'll come back and show you. Right, I feel a bit like I'm doing the 3-card trick here. This is the original frame with the perspex at the front, with the mount immediately behind it, held in place by these little metal tabs, which you will break your fingernails on. This is the original backboard with the mounting little metalwork on it, and this is the intermediate backboard, which I am going to attach to the back of the frame here and then mount that on top like that, so that we then have the depth behind the plastic glass and the mount doesn't fall through like that. Now, I want to have a black background rather than a white one. So initially, full disclosure here, I made a mistake and I cut it to this size. But of course this is no longer going to be the back of the photograph or the back of the frame. This is going to be behind the intermediate board. So the black needs to go on the front here. And I think you can see what's happened is that if I just do that, then the black is the same size as the hole, the aperture, so it will actually just fall forwards like that. You probably can't see it on the camera, but you know what I mean. So the better thing to do is to cut it to the size of the intermediate board, and then when it's attached to this, it's held in place by the frame, and then this is simply relegated to a mechanism for hanging it up on the wall. Right. Let's put it all together. And here we are finally. The sharp-eyed amongst you will notice that in fact I haven't made just one three-dimensional frame, I've made 3. They all have black backgrounds, and what I'm doing here is I'm just attaching the newly cut bigger board for the backboard onto the back of the smallest one. All I used for this was just a ordinary staple gun. All I would say about the staple gun, little health and safety thing, is when you've done your last staple, like this, hold it down and put the safety catch on. Now, I was going to, if you remember, use the original backboard from the photograph and stick that on the back of the newly cut board so that I could use these metal fixings to attach it to the wall. But then I thought, actually, that's going to make it quite bulky. I can take this off, but these are going to make it quite bulky from the wall. So I didn't glue that on, and I decided instead I would use these Velcro stickers to attach the 3D pictures to the wall, because I think they're safer for two reasons. One, because of the bulky business I've just mentioned, but also because these are going up in the hallway, which has quite a lot of through traffic, and I just think it would be too easy if it was just hooked on a nail with one of these metal fixings for it to just get knocked and fall onto the floor. As a finishing touch, what I'm going to do, and I have done on the other two, is I've got a Sharpie pen, because I'm using white backboard. Let's see if I can get this close enough for you to see. I'm just taking a Sharpie pen and running it down the side here, which I hope you can see eliminates that white edge. Oops, doesn't matter if it goes all over the back because no one's going to see. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. So there we are. It's a bit difficult to do it when you're not looking at it. So you can see it just makes the edge of the board black, which actually I think does make a significant difference. You can make a tidier job of it if you want to do it than I did. Even though we're not using these original backboards that came with the frames, don't throw them away, because I've got another idea for a different project where we can use them. So we'll just put those to one side for the moment. And while I'm waiting for the glue on the Velcro strips to cure, I just wanted to take the whole thing a step further. What if you had something really big that you wanted to frame and put on the wall? Well, what you could do, I've just got two of these small frames here. You could actually glue these two frames together. You take everything out of one of them, so remove all the innards, as it were, and then just glue it to the back of that one, having taken out the backboard. Glue them together, cut a piece of card to cover the whole of the back of this one, and then you've got all of this depth here to put something in there. It could be a rock or something like that, but you could put something in there that's really quite deep, and I think that creates a huge point of interest on the wall, because you can't just look at it, you have to really look into the frame and think, what is that? What's going on in there? And I think that's utterly charming and inviting and very different. I like that. Obviously, if you're going to go that deep, you don't want that on a very narrow hallway, but I think it creates a real point of interest somewhere else, and you might want to make it a bigger frame than that. But that's entirely down to personal taste. Right, let's see how the pictures are getting on. And here we have all three pictures on the wall, and I have to say I'm absolutely delighted with them. Let me just give you a close-up of each one. So this one is a skeletonized leaf which I found in the garden last autumn, and which I have spray painted with gold paint to just really reveal the skeleton of the leaf and to show how absolutely beautiful it is. This is literally as light as a feather, so I've just attached it to the back of the black paper by a tiny amount of super glue, and that's dried transparent, so it's invisible and also keeps that leaf in place. This one is the shell from seafood, which I ate actually in a restaurant, and as I ate the little fish that was inside it, it revealed this beautiful, beautiful shell, which is sort of silver and green and pink. So beautiful. I actually asked the restaurant if I could just have it, and they were surprised but said yes. So I brought that back. That's obviously heavier than the leaf, so that is glued onto the black paper, and behind the black paper and in front of the intermediate board I've put another little bit of glue, so that also just stays in place and is quite secure there. And then the final one is, this is very similar to the first one. It's actually two skeletonized pods from a Chinese lantern plant, which I found in the garden again last autumn when all the fleshy part rotted away, and I just thought this was so pretty. So what I've actually done to highlight this, in keeping with a sort of theme going on in my mind, I've sprayed these bronze so that, I might have to go on tiptoe for this bit, so that we have gold, silver and bronze, just a little theme I was working through. Now at the end I quite often reflect on, if I was doing this again, what would I do differently? As far as the putting it together, I think I've pointed out any mistakes I've made as I went through it. But if I was doing it again, this one with the 2 pods in, which are actually the Chinese lantern pods, which have skeletonized, I think I would just position them slightly differently, put them perhaps a little bit closer together, but my glue dried very quickly and they were just stuck there, so I thought, okay, I'll just leave them as they are without ripping the paper and starting again. So that's it. That is how, I'm going on tiptoe because I'm not very tall, that is how you frame a 3-dimensional object, and I think it just gives us a really interesting and different picture on the wall to look at, and I really like the 3-dimensional quality to it. You may also notice, because I've used these 3 different size frames going up the wall, they're a little bit like, if you remember from sort of 1930s sitcoms, the flying ducks on the wall. And the reason you do this is because it then gives it another perspective. If you look at the frames alone, it gives the impression that they're sort of flying backwards, if they were ducks, into the wall. So if you look going this way, this one looks like it's in the front, that's a bit further back, and that one's right at the back there. So we're playing with perspective here. I'm actually going to play with perspective on a different project a bit later on, but I need to work out how to do it at the moment. We're using perspective to raise a ceiling, so look out for that one. If you're still with me, well done. Make sure you subscribe, and please subscribe to all, because unlike you, who are terribly clever and can spot that the theme through all of these videos is creativity, the YouTube algorithms don't. So if you subscribe for this one, the default is other videos like this, which means that you will only get sent videos from me about framing, whereas of course, as we both now know, the common thread is creativity, and that covers a vast range of different projects. Anyway, I don't publish that frequently, so you're not going to be bombarded. Nothing lost. Hope to see you in the next one. Give me a thumbs up. Thank you. Bye.